Good morning, honorable members, and good morning to the members of the Special Investigating Unit, Advocate Motibi, and your team. Good morning. Let me just make sure I'm not talking to myself here.
Good morning, Chair. We can hear you clearly. Good morning to the SIU.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, Chair.
All right. Okay, thank you so much.
You're audible, Chair. All good. Morning.
Am I audible? Okay. No, thank you. I was worried about that. So before we proceed, I would like to begin with a very special announcement that the head of the Special Investigating Unit, Advocate Andy Motibi, has been re-elected as Vice President of the International Association of Anti-Corruption Authorities, the IAACA, which some of the members may have seen. But I just want to congratulate you, Advocate Motibi, as well as the members of your team, because you obviously don't work alone, and to say that you have our support as the committee in the work that you're doing in South Africa, but also in exporting some of the internationally. So I just wanted to say thank you for the work that you do and that your team does, and to also congratulate you. To be much. I would also like to welcome to the committee Honorable Hassan. She's in the Electricity and Energy Portfolio Committee, and she asked to join because we obviously dealing with the matters at hand today. So Advocate Motibi, congratulations, and Honorable Hassan, welcome to our committee, and we hope to see you again in future meetings.
Chair, sorry if I may, it's Farad Isak. I think you could also extend a warm word of welcome to our colleague Kevin Milam, who is also a member of the Electricity and Energy. Yeah, he's joined us today.
I didn't see. Honorable Milam, thank you very much, and welcome to our committee, and we look forward to seeing you again when we're dealing with matters of mutual interest. Advocate Motibi, do you want to say a few words?
No, thank you, Chair. Thank you for the congratulatory words. We really appreciate. That's really an acknowledgement that the country and SIU in particular continues to add value. So on that note, Chair, we are ready. We are ready to start if the Honorable Chair and Honorable members are ready. Thank you.
No, I have a small housekeeping issue to deal with. So in the notice today, members, we were supposed to deal with both Eskom and the Unemployment Insurance Fund. I am mindful of the time that we have, which is limited on this occasion. So we are going to reschedule the UIF part of our meeting to the 25th of this month, so that we can deal with the matters arising there properly. So today we're only going to deal with Eskom and complete that discussion. And with that said, Advocate Motibi, I will then hand over to you.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chair and Honorable members of SCOPA. We are ready to commence. Just quickly to introduce the colleagues that are with me in the meeting. I'm joined by Mr. Lekgetho, whom the committee knows is the Chief Operating Officer. And we are also accompanied by Mr. Vivian Govender, who's the lead investigator at Eskom. He will be doing the Eskom presentation. I'm also joined by Mr. Khanyako and Mr. Vanara. Mr. Vanara takes care of the litigation that emanates from these investigations. He might come in, if necessary, to give an update on various litigation matters. There are also other investigators that joined who were going to present on the UIF, but they will be excused now that there's this rearrangement. Honorable Chair, without really wasting time, we've realized that the time is limited, and we need to be pointed as we present. I really won't say much on the presentation, except to say we've had various investigations which the presentation will show. Yes, so the proclamation, as you can see, there's various of them, and at various stages. And I won't go through the outline all of it, because as we start to present, it will become clear. And as we make the observation later on, Eskom and management really have come to the party. The not so new anymore leadership at Eskom, CEO and the board. We've been engaging with them on various occasions. They've taken into account the outcomes, and they have really implemented some of the referrals that we have made. We continue to engage with them so that we see which ones are still outstanding and which ones must still be implemented. So to a large extent, we've really, realized that although there's still much that needs to be investigated. I mean, just this morning, we read that there's issues around some of the tokens that they have there, although it's not within our mandate, but we will engage with them if there's any way that we can assist. So one can see that the issues of corruption, maladministration, and malpractice are still continuing. So if you can slide over, please. Right, at this stage, Honorable Chair, really without wasting the committee's time, I'm going to hand over to Mr. Govender, who will take the committee through the presentation. Mr. Govender, please note the time. We've got 30 minutes according to the program to complete our presentation. Thank you. It's 30 minutes an hour. Sorry, before I mislead you, I see it's 9. Okay, it was supposed to be 9:30 to 10:30. So Honorable Chair, in the hour, is the hour allocated to us, or we've got few minutes in that hour to present?
So Advocate Mothibi, so we don't want to rush you unnecessarily. I mean, time is important because we don't have until 1 o'clock like we normally do. But since I amended the day's program, so please don't rush. You can take an extra 10 minutes basically. You can take the whole 30 minutes to present. You can take the whole 30 minutes to present, and then we've got a bit of time to then work through the discussion. Yeah.
No, thank you. Thank you.
You don't need to rush, Mr. Govender, at all.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Govender, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Advocate. Good morning, Honorable Chair and Honorable members and members of the Special Investigating Unit and any additional members that might have been invited and that are attending. My name is Vivian Govender, and I'm presenting on Eskom Proclamation's Truth Scope today. The Eskom Proclamation that mandates the investigation is Proclamation R11 of 2018, as amended by Proclamation R3 of 2020 and 97 of 2022. Effectively, the mandate extends to the procurement and contracting for coal transportation, diesel, cloud computing services with SAP, software licensing and support services with SAP, the engineering and project management consulting services in respect of 2 specific contract numbers in relation to Impulse International, the procurement of good works and services by Eskom's Kusile, Medupi, Kendal, Matla, Dova, Arnott, Tutuka, and Grootvlei power stations, as well as contracts concluded at Eskom's head office in Megawatt Park. Contract number 46000 in respect of a IT contract awarded to Oracle, fuel supply contracts. Next slide, please. The maladministration into the affairs of Eskom and any losses suffered in respect of the build projects at Kusile, Medupi, and Ngula, as well as the high voltage transmission contracts associated with those three builds. The appointment of Mackenzie, Trillion, and regiments to render services to Eskom and any undisclosed or unauthorized interest which Eskom employees, officials, and agents may have with Eskom suppliers, contractors, and service providers bidding for work or doing business with Eskom, and to the extent of any potential actual benefits derived directly or indirectly from that undisclosed and unauthorized interest. The investigation spans the period 1 January 2003 to the 2nd of December 2022, or any events which took place prior to 1st January 2003 or after the 2nd of December 2022, but is relevant to, connected with, or incidental or auxiliary to the matters mentioned in the schedule to the proclamation. Firstly, we're going to deal with the conflict of interest, declaration of interest, the red flags, and whistleblower information that we receive. The first category will be the Eskom's employees' non-disclosure or non-completion of the prescribed declaration forms. The SIU found that there were 5,464 employees that did not complete the DOI forms. These employees have subsequently been referred to Eskom. When it comes to the conflict of interest, through data analytics, the SIU red flagged 334 Eskom employees that held interest in various companies. To date, the SIU has made 194 referrals to Eskom for disciplinary action. We have also made 14 referrals to the NPA, resulting in 3 people that have been since arrested. 1 person has been found guilty of 7 counts of corruption and 2 counts of fraud. Through the departmental process, that person was also issued with a period of suspension without pay. The other 2 matters, one is set down for trial on the 18th and 19th. This employee has been dismissed on the 9th of August 2024. And the third matter is set down for trial on the 1st of April 2025. That person received a final written warning. The additional matters are being prepared for the NPA, and we are also tracking the outstanding cases at the NPA. Next slide. In respect of the red flags, these refer to Eskom employees above the E-band salary. So it's generally the more senior Eskom employees. They were red flagged through an audit process by external service provider to Eskom. 34 of these matters have been referred to the SIU for further investigation. Of that, we've made 11 disciplinary referrals to Eskom. 21 of these matters have been closed out without further investigation, and 2 matters are still under investigation. We've ad hoc, the whistleblower cases refer to ad hoc cases received from various sources, including whistleblowers and elements within Eskom, as well as through the media. The SIU has received to date 29 cases, and we've assessed that these 29 cases have been covered in terms of the mandate to the SIU. 11 of these matters have been finalized and have been referred to Eskom for disciplinary action. Next slide. Now, I want to go back to the outcomes of the matters that have been referred. In the first category, which is the DC outcomes in respect of the declaration of interest, from the 5,464 matters that have been referred, 3,875 matters have been finalized. 1,076 matters is where the employee has terminated services with Eskom, either through resignation, retirement, or death, or other many means of terminating service. We have then Eskom employees below level T9. These are low-level Eskom employees. When I say low-level, I mean low-income groups that are not required ordinarily to complete the forms. So there's 235 that we have in that case. There were 139 instances where we found that these people were actually receiving bursaries or learnerships from Eskom. Therefore, they were not required to complete the declaration forms. 118 were third-party contractors, and there are 21 open disciplinary matters to date. Next slide. In respect of the 194 conflict of interest that we picked up, 44 of these matters are still with management for consideration. In 29 instances, the employees were issued with a period of suspension without pay. We had 26 matters where a person was issued with final written warning valid for a period of 6 months. We had 25 resignations, 20 were found not guilty, 19 received a final written warning valid for 12 months, 12 were dismissed, 6 retired, 4 withdrawn, 3 deceased. The line manager employee declared is where we have instances where the forms were not loaded onto the electronic platform, but the person completed the forms manually, and these forms were with the line manager at the time. 2 people, we have a separation package, and 1 was rehired. On the next category, these are the levels of the Eskom employees. You'll see 116 bargaining, 57 managers, 7 senior managers, 6 middle managers. So these are the levels of the employees that the referrals were made against. Next slide, please. Can we change the slide, please?
Colleagues, let's move on, please. There we go.
Thanks. You. In respect of the red flags, we made the 11 DC referrals. These are the outcomes of that 11 DC referrals, as well as the employee levels associated with that. You'll see that most of these people here are in the management sphere. As I said, because it's the salary band that we used as the cutoff threshold. The next slide. This is the whistleblower outcomes. There are also 11 matters in this category. We had 5 written warnings, 2 dismissed, 2 final written warning for valid for 12 months, 1 not guilty, 1 resigned, and 1 suspension without pay. And on the other side, we have the category employee salary bands associated with these referrals. In coal supply, we can move on. In coal supply agreements, we investigated the Tegeta Brakfontein matter. That matter has been subject to litigation in the Gauteng High Court under case number 90171 of 2018. The SIU found that this contract was unlawfully awarded to Tegeta Brakfontein, and the matter has subsequently been reviewed and set aside in the court. The value of the contract was 3.7 billion rand. Future savings was calculated at 2.6 billion rand. The SIU and Eskom are contemplating pursuing the case against the business rescue practitioners for appropriate relief as a result of the damages suffered by Eskom due to the poor quality coal being supplied by Tegeta Brakfontein. Council to be briefed to have the matter set down for a hearing to argue a point that Eskom is not a creditor. This will avoid Eskom being considered a creditor as provided for in the Insolvency Act by the business rescue practitioners. If successful, this will avoid the obtainment of an unexecutable and hollow judgment. The possibility of acting against the company's executive is not excluded in the event of the judgment not being satisfied. No DC referrals have been made to date in this category, as the implicated officials were no longer employed by Eskom. The criminal matter has been dealt with by the IDAC arm of the NPA. Next slide. The next matter that we dealt with was the Tegeta Optimum Mine. This matter has been prosecuted currently before the Gauteng High Court under case number 35689 of 2020. The matter is ongoing. The contract with Tegeta Optimum was terminated. Tegeta was placed under business rescue. Eskom has lodged 2 claims against Tegeta to recover contractual penalties under Endrina's contract coal supply agreement. As both Tegeta and Optimum were under business rescue at the time, Eskom was unlikely to recover its claim against them. Civil proceedings have been instituted by the SIU and Eskom against various former Eskom employees, board members, and the former executive authority, and private individuals to recover 3.8 billion rand suffered in losses. In August 2020, combined summons and the particulars of claim were issued against 12 defendants under the above case number. The matter has been placed on case management for trial date to be set. No DC referrals have been made as the implicated officials were no longer employed by Eskom. The criminal matter, once again, has been dealt with by the IDAC arm of the NPA. Next slide. This is the Tigeta Korenfontein coal supply agreement. The SIU found that the contract was unlawfully awarded as it was inconsistent with the provisions of Section 217 of the Constitution. The contract was terminated by Eskom based on the SIU's findings. The value of the contract was 6.5 billion rand. Potential respondents, defendants have no assets and are currently under business rescue. Civil litigation action was not considered as it would have not realized the losses or damages suffered by Eskom, as it would have resulted in a hollow and unexecutable judgment. No DC referrals were made as the implicated officials were no longer employed by Eskom. The criminal matter has been dealt with by the IDAC arm of the NPA. Next slide. We also have a matter relating to coal supply agreements with a contract that was concluded by commodity logistics managers. The investigation found that a senior manager within the coal operation, Mr. Mazibuko, received money from CLM through a network of entities connected with him and his family. The SIU investigated a contract awarded to CLM to the value of 24 million rand. The SIU made a disciplinary referral against Mr. Mazibuko, where after the hearing, he was convened, he was dismissed. The SIU embarked on civil litigation proceedings to freeze the bank accounts of Mr. Mazibuko and disgorge the secret profits that he received under Special Tribunal case number 10 of 2021. The SIU approached this case in two parts. Part A was to preserve the 11 million rand, which was in the personal bank account of Mr. Mazibuko, and Part B, which was the forfeiture of the funds as it constituted secret profits. The SIU was successful in both parts and obtained an order from the Special Tribunal on the 4th of October 2021. Mazibuko filed an application for leave to appeal the order, which was dismissed. On the 16th of February 2023, Mazibuko petitioned the Supreme Court of Appeal to appeal the judgment, and the appeal was upheld, and the SIU is opposing the matter. That SCA matter is ongoing. The SIU has made 10 NPA referrals against various officials and companies, including Mazibuko, on this matter. Next slide. With SIU versus Mr. Zulu on the Special Tribunal case number 4 of 2021, it's the exact same company, Commodity Logistics Managers, is implicated in this matter as well. It was the same contract for 24 million rand. The SIU embarked on civil litigation proceedings to disgorge the secret profits received by Mr. Zulu, and it was successful. Mr. Zulu brought various interlocutory applications, which was opposed by the SIU. The matter was heard on the 19th of August 2022, and although judgment was reserved initially, the SIU was then required to amend its papers, which it has done. The matter is now ongoing. The SIU has made 5 NPA referrals against various individuals and companies, including Zulu. Next slide. On the build project, the SIU identified 30 packages between Kusile, Medupi, and Ngula for investigation. The total value of all of these packages is in excess of 200 billion rand. To date, we've made 15 DC referrals. There were 163 NPA referrals. Many of these matters have been enrolled. Referrals include Eskom employees and various Eskom contractors. In terms of civil litigation, the matter with ABB has been reviewed and set aside, and there are currently three cases being prepared for civil litigation. The rest of the investigations are ongoing. In respect of the outcomes of the DC referrals made, 10 have been dismissed and 5 have resigned. In terms of the salary levels, we have 6 managers, 3 bargaining, 3 senior managers, 2 middle manager, and 1 group executive. Slide. The ABB contract at Kusile was a contract that was reviewed and set aside due to it not being consistent with the provisions of Section 217 of the Constitution under Gauteng High Court case number 31211 of 2023. The value of the contract was 2.5 billion rand, including VAT. The NPA's IDAC has reached an agreement with ABB to repay 2.5 billion rand in the form of punitive reparations as a result of crimes committed against the Eskom and the state during the state capture period. The SIU was also able to obtain an order for the repayment of 1.5 billion rand in the form of just and equitable relief that Eskom and the SIU sought against ABB under the court now the Gauteng High Court case number. There were no DC referrals made against the implicated officials as they were no longer employed by Eskom. The case number has been challenged by Mr. Koko, who was the former acting CEO of Eskom. The matter has now been defended by the SIU and Eskom, and the matter is ongoing. Next slide. In SIU versus Shlakudi and others, in the Special Tribunal case number 8 of 2022, this relates to various contracts, including the Stefanuti Stocks Izazi Consortium, JV that was contracted for the site finishing works at Kusile Power Station, which we refer to as Package 28. The SIU found that there was a corrupt relationship between the JV and the identified Eskom employees. The SIU found evidence of money flow from the Eskom to the JV and then to the Eskom employees. Some Eskom employees resigned prior to the SIU investigation. A disciplinary referral was made by the SIU against one Eskom employee, and he was dismissed. The SIU filed its summons and particulars of claim against the Eskom employees to disgorge secret profits they received from the JV, and the matter is ongoing under that case number. NPA referrals have been made against all the individuals and entities concerned, and the AFU has preserved various assets held in the names of the employees. The SIU has found that the contract with the JV was also irregularly awarded and is currently being prepared for civil litigation with the view of reviewing and setting aside that contract. Next slide. In SIU versus Moyo, in the Special Tribunal on case number 9 of 2022, it was alleged that Eskom employees was receiving kickbacks from the Eskom contractor. The SIU investigated the contract concluded between Eskom and Tamakelo for the supply of or transportation of raw and potable water to the value of 341 million rand. The SIU found that the Eskom employee received financial benefits to the tune of 24 million rand from Tamakelo through a network of entities and family members. Ms. Moyo received these payments in the circumstances where she was responsible for and or involved in the appointment, managing, and approving of payments to Tamakelo. The SIU made a disciplinary referral against Ms. Moyo, who was dismissed after the disciplinary process. The SIU obtained an interim order to freeze Ms. Moyo's pension under the above case number. The SIU also made various referrals to the NPA and the AFU. The Tamakelo contract was terminated by Eskom on October 2020 prior to the SIU investigation or findings being made. The SIU has assisted the AFU in confiscating and freezing various assets of Ms. Moyo, which she acquired with the proceeds of the crime, as well as the significant assets held by Tamakelo and its directors. On 20th of March 2024, the High Court granted a final forfeiture order against all of the assets, including that of Ms. Moyo and the directors of Tamakelo, and Tamakelo as the entity itself. Next slide, please. We now go on to the cloud computing and software contracts. This was 2 contracts that was awarded to SAP during 2015-2016. The SIU investigated these 2 contracts and found that these contracts was irregular and inconsistent with the provisions of the Section 217 of the Constitution. The SIU embarked on civil litigation proceedings to set aside these contracts. Matter was heard in the Special Tribunal under case number 11 of 2022. And on 20th of March 2024, the Special Tribunal declared that these 2 contracts were invalid and set them aside. The combined value of these contracts was 1.2 billion rand, including VAT. The Special Tribunal also ordered that SAP repay an amount of 570 million rand to the SIU. The SIU has made 13 referrals to the NPA, and the 570 million rand that have been recovered by the SIU from SAP has since been paid over to Eskom. Next slide. Engineering and project management service. This is the 2 contracts that was concluded by Eskom with Impulse International. These matters were currently terminated when the SIU commenced its investigation, and Impulse International had instituted civil action against Eskom for damages in respect of early termination of these contracts. Eskom is defending both these matters and lodged counter proceedings to have these contracts declared invalid. The SIU has entered into discussions with Eskom about the possibility for the SIU to join or intervene in these cases. to try and bolster Eskom's case, but will only do so if the proposed intervention will add significant value to the litigation and if it is cost-effective and efficient to do so and will not result in any further delays. The SIU is playing an active role in assisting the IDAC to investigate certain aspects of the matter, which also resulted in the AFU obtaining preservation orders. Next slide. Next slide. I want to now talk about procurement irregularities, and this relates specifically to procurement events less than R1 million. Through the SIU's investigation, we've identified 3 groupings of companies that were defrauding Eskom by using the request for quotation processes or the informal tendering processes. In Group 1, we've identified 23 vendors who obtained purchase orders less than R1 million transactions to the value of 1.8 billion rand across all 15 power stations. This is limited, honorable members, to the period 2020 to 2024, the end of 2024. In Group 2, we found 31 vendors receiving POs to the value of 1.7 billion rand across all 15 power stations, and Group 3, which is pretty much an ongoing investigation with 12 vendors was received POs to the value of 700 million rand. These suppliers were found to be collude with Eskom officials. The SIU has identified a direct link of money flowing from these companies through a network of entities and to the Eskom employees. To date, 35 Eskom employees have been identified as having received in excess of 180 million rand from these vendors. We've made 34 DC referrals, 17 for current Eskom employees and 17 for former Eskom employees. There's been 116 referrals that have been made to the NPA and 116 referrals have been made to the Assets Forfeiture Unit. There are 109 referrals that have been made to SARS, and the SIU is having ongoing discussions with SARS in their efforts. We've made 45 referrals to Eskom for the restriction of the 45 entities, vendors, and I can confirm that they have been blocked. In respect of the 35 that have been identified and the 34 that we've made referrals on, there's a difference of 1, which matter is ongoing. The value associated with this one Eskom employee is substantial. Therefore, it requires a more detailed investigation. Next slide, please. In its approach to conducting this investigation, the SIU realized that we could not do it alone, although the SIU approaches investigations from a multidisciplinary process. We also found the need to now be more creative and create a interdepartmental task team that we've managed to establish to coordinate efforts in this investigation. The task team includes the Financial Intelligence Center, the State Security Agency, the South African Police Service Crime Intelligence, the South African Police Detectives, the Directorate of Private Crime Investigations, the Assets Forfeiture Unit, and SARS. And I can confirm now that the NPA has also got in, because we are having now prosecutor-led investigations and prosecution since we've made the referral. The SIU has also established a tactical operational group with the Financial Intelligence Center that allowed the banks to also participate in this from a strategic level and then to provide intelligence in respect of the investigations that we had. The SIU has already engaged with Eskom with imaging of laptops. To date, over 530 laptops have been imaged from the identified individuals that we found that were high-risk employees. The SIU will also prepare matters for civil litigation proceedings to possibly preserve the pensions of the Eskom employees identified. SARS are quite advanced and are looking into the tax affairs of the vendors and other entities, as well as the Eskom employees concerned. Next slide, please. Honorable members, these graphs are an indication of only Group 1 and 2. As I said, Group 3 matters are still being investigated. But for the period up to 2020, so this is periods before 2020, Group 1 and 2, and this is not all procurement in Eskom. These are only low-value procurement awarded to Groups 1 and 2. So up to 2020, we have ad hoc POs, which is the low-value POs, to the value of 637 million that was issued. In 2020 itself was 665 million. In 2021, 650 million. In 2022, we see a dip to 422 million, then 591 million, and then 352 million. The blue column indicates informal tendering, and the red column indicates a formal contract. Now, you will notice that formal contracting was pretty low prior to 2020. Then from 2021, we started to see a steady increase. That is because through the observations, through investigations by the SIU and the recommendations with management at Eskom, we were able to establish now that perhaps we should be placing more formal contracts where we are buying high commodity items on a regular basis. I can say that these have been done, and that is why we see a shift towards a spend towards the red column as we come into 2024, which now increases from around 2023 to 2024 on expenditure against fixed-term contracts or formal contracts as opposed to informal tendering. Next slide. This is the locations of where the informal tendering for Groups 1 and Group 2 is occurring. So up to 2020 is the first blue column, and then we have 2020, 21, 22, up until 24. And each one of those colors in this columns reflect a different year that we are looking at. So this is the calendar year and not necessarily the financial year. But you'll notice that Kusile and Kriel power stations are the big eaters. I must say that this is, and I must stress again, that this is not all informal tendering at Eskom. This is only informal tendering awarded to the entities identified in Group 1 and Group 2. Next slide, please. In this slide, we see that the time period of POs being issued, specifically time outside of normal working hours, and we consider normal working hours for the purpose of this exercise to be between 7 in the morning or before 7 in the morning and after 1800 hours in the evening. Now, if you look, for example, at Kusile Power Station, you'll see most of the purchase orders issued after the normal working hours is at Kusile Power Station. Interestingly, we'll see between midnight and 3 o'clock in the morning, which is the purple column, we have quite a number being issued in Kusile. And if you look at that number and the value, rand value, it's 23 million rand in the form of purchase orders. And it might not sound like a lot, but these are all less than 1 million rand transactions. It doesn't have to be 999,999. It could be as low as 50K for 50,000 rand. So there's a significant number of purchase orders being issued outside of normal working hours. Some people might argue that this is, somebody really committed to the work and wanting to make sure they complete the work. And I say that that is a very subjective thing. Within the risk management perspective, we tend to red flag these kind of patterns, and we look at people who are working excessively out of working hours, and we try and then draw a comparison to see what are they doing within working hours and whether there's any sort of collaboration in terms of the effort that they're putting in. Next slide, please. I will now go on to the security emergency contracts. The SIU identified, originally it was one contract, it was the contract awarded to Fidelity Security during the 2022 as a result of an emergency that was declared by Eskom. This was widely reported in the media. But when we did the assessment, we realized that there were similar patterns and processes that was used in other earlier emergencies, which we could not ignore. So we therefore had to include those two other emergencies within our investigation. What the SIU found is that that the Eskom employees were deliberately creating emergencies. In one case, we have Eskom employees were planning and declaring an emergency up to 7 days in advance. What's interesting about 7 days and what's significant about that is that specifically with an emergency, it must be within 48 hours. So once you go beyond 48 hours, it's no longer an emergency. You can use other alternative methods of appointing service providers, such as the urgent procurement process. The companies that were appointed did not have the capacity to undertake the work or render the services and subcontracted, in one instance, up to 90% of the work to third parties. It is unclear how these companies were contracting with and how they were identified where they did not have the capacity. Especially where in one instance, this company never did work for Eskom prior to that date. We found that Eskom employees contacted intermediaries before contacting the actual service provider for quotations. The intermediaries then invoiced and were paid a facilitation fee by the Eskom supplier. Eskom employees persisted with the emergencies even after the alleged perceived threats had dissipated. So in one instance, we have Eskom employee, or the rationale for declaring an emergency was labor unrest. But even after Eskom then declared that the dispute with labor had been resolved, the emergency was allowed to continue for at least another 6 weeks before it was eventually terminated. The SIU has concluded 2 of the investigations, and one matter is currently under investigation, and that is the appointment of Fidelity. To date, we've made 5 referrals for disciplinary action. I know that those proceedings are quite advanced because I've consulted myself with Eskom's counsel in that matter. We've made 3 referrals to the NPA. The NPA has also contacted us to have engagements. One matter is being prepared for civil litigation to set the contract aside. In respect of the appointment of Fidelity, there's more to it other than just the declaring emergency and appointing a service provider. There's the elements of intelligence gathering. There's the intelligence, the elements of the George Fiver's forensic report investigation that was undertaken and how that was funded. The SIU has done extensive investigation in that regard. But in order for us to finalize that investigation, we need to rely on the flow of money to see whether any of the Eskom money, whether it be directly from Eskom or from a service provider to Eskom, was used to fund that investigation. Next slide, please. These are the outcomes of the disciplinary referrals that was made with both the procurement irregularities that we identified, as well as the security cases that we spoke about. We have 18 that have resigned, and that's from including the 34 that we spoke about. We have 14 matters which are currently with management for decision. And when we say with management for consideration, that is including a disciplinary process that has commenced, where possibly a recommendation has been made by the presiding officer, and where management is now deciding on how to implement the consequences of that outcome of that disciplinary hearing. 5 matters have been concluded and they've been dismissed. I can also confirm that these 5 people are now taking a challenge in their dismissal through the CCMA, which matter is ongoing, but the SIU is up for the challenge and we are defending this aggressively. We have 1 instance where the person is deceased, and there's 1 disciplinary case that's in progress at the moment. The levels of the employees are 18 from the bargaining sector. We have 12 managers, 6 third-party contractors, 2 executives, and 1 senior manager. And the categories of the investigation categories as well is the 34 comes from procurement investigations and 5 are from security emergencies. Next slide, please. Fuel oil supply contracts. The SIU originally received a request to investigate the contract concluded with Econ Oil. When we obtained the mandate in 2022, we found at that stage that Eskom and Econ Oil was already involved in the dispute arbitration process which Eskom has initiated to recover monies that Econ Oil had overcharged. The matter has been defended by Econ Oil and it's ongoing. The SIU had discussions with Eskom about the possibility of assisting Eskom to try and bolster its case, but will only do so if the intervention would add significant value to the dispute and if it would not cause further delays or additional costs. It is unlikely, however, that the SIU will become involved in this matter, as it appears that the matter is quite advanced at the DEB and pleadings have also closed. There are no outcomes to date. There are other fuel oil supply contracts that the SIU is busy assessing, and we will make a determination in terms of whether to proceed with those investigations. Next slide. We now go on to Proclamation 178 of 2024, which is a new proclamation that was issued on the 30th of August 2024 that deals specifically with some of the matters that were red flagged through the State Capture Commission. Some of these matters are also included in Proclamation R11 of 2018. So in order not for us to duplicate efforts, we continue with those investigations under the original mandate. So we have, in terms of this proclamation, the mandate includes the procurement or contracting for coal from Tegeta or coal supplied by Optimum and Brakfontein mines, IT services in terms of master agreements concluded with T-Systems, information technology services concluded with SAP, services in respect of task order SM008 for capital scrubbing, security services from Combined Private Investigations, investigation services from Capitwala Incorporated, trading as Denton, South Africa, and information technology services from Cutting Edge Commerce. The investigation spans the period 1 March 2006 to the 30th of August 2024. Next slide, please. These are the investigations that have commenced. The other investigations, as I alluded to, are covered in terms of Proclamation R11 of 2018. Most of them have been finalized. It's just the civil litigation that is outstanding. We have the T-Systems matter that is ongoing. Combined Private Investigations is ongoing. Capital scrubbing, we have 4 focus areas that we've identified, and these are ongoing. Capitwala is ongoing, and Cutting Edge is ongoing. Next slide. Thank you very much, honorable members and chair. I conclude my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Govender. Honorable chair and honorable members, that's our presentation. Just to really indicate in terms of the vulnerabilities of Eskom. The conflict of interest area, where we're showing more than 5,000 employees who were one way or another found to have had conflict of interest, failure to declare business, and so on. That part, as the honorable members would realize, and not only in Eskom, in various areas of government operations, the conflict of interest creates a base on which further corrupt activities would occur. So the rigor with which we dealt with conflict of interest in Eskom has really realized that those who were involved started to see that the conflict of interest issue has been dealt with, and they started to pull back, and hence the decline in terms of further conflict of interest issues. What we wanted for Eskom, and they did that, is for consequence management in this area, so that all those and the